anyone who has a 6-month-old can tell you all a 6-month-old wants to do is put things in their mouth, like mostly dangerous things you don't want them to put in their mouth. But they're really developmentally primed for self-feeding.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning in to Mom Talks with Krista this week. So during our weekly Q&As, I get tons of questions about weaning. When they should start weaning, how to start weaning, what kind of foods babies should eat first, all of that. So if these are questions that you've thought about recently or have asked me, this episode is for you. Today I have Jenny Best from Solid Starts, and she's gonna be answering all the questions when it comes to baby-led weaning. So we split this interview up into 2 parts because there's tons of awesome information. So for part 1 today, we're gonna dive into baby-led weaning. What is it and how can you tell your baby is ready to start weaning? So let's just dive right in, and I hope you learned something awesome in this episode. Welcome, Jenny. Just first to get started, let's just hear a little bit about you and just kind of like how your journey started.
I was a ballerina with the New York City Ballet way back when, and 5 years into that, I broke my back, and it completely obliterated my career. It was over. And at the ripe age of 21, I went back to school, put myself through college, and 9/11 happened during that time. And so I was really focused on how can I help my city? And I really was interested in government. So my first job actually out of college was with Mike Bloomberg in City Hall in our mayor's office here. And I stayed with that administration for about 10 years, learned everything on that job, every crisis, you name it. It was such a great experience, truly the best job. But I was really burned out after 10 years of constantly being on call and having that be number one in my life. And so I took a couple months off and was just like, I'm not going to travel. I'm just going to like refine myself. What do I really want to do with my life? And I fell in love with food. My sort of like vacation activity was I would go buy a book at Barnes and Noble's back in the day when we'd actually go, perusing the aisles for a book. And I would take myself out to lunch. And that was like my stay vacation, find myself activity. I did that for like 2 months. And I was just reading and consuming all this food material, from food history to food science to sustainability. So when I became a mom, that naturally sort of merged and blended into baby food in a major way. And now this is definitely my calling. I feel like I found my happy place. It's who knew it was going to be in baby food.
I'm really excited about this interview because we have a Facebook group with Mommy Knows Best, and we get so many questions, as a breastfeeding company, so many questions about like, when can baby start weaning? When can I start, feeding baby solid foods? And so this was like a perfect connection. So I can't wait to just ask you a bunch of these questions to get into everything. So kind of to get started, so what are some big signs that a baby is ready to start solid foods?
Yeah, and there's a lot of misinformation out there about this stuff too, so I'm happy to get it out there. So there's really 3 or 4 things that you want to be looking for. The 3 like primary things are, 1, just being able to sit upright. I mean, if you've had a 3-month-old, a 4-month-old, 5-month-old baby, they're kind of floppy, their heads bop around like this. You want them to be able to sit upright. It doesn't have to be for a long time. You can do the like leaning tower of Pisa move, like it's up for like, is it 5 seconds? Okay, I think we're ready before they topple over. And you want them to have enough, head and neck strength to really hold themselves upright. Feeding a baby who's not doing those things actually be a little bit dangerous and is going to require a reclined chair, which is also, sort of like in the increased choking hazard realm. So you don't want to go that direction. So being able to sit upright, hold the head properly. The other thing we like to look for is what's called reach and grab. So the ability to like reach, it could be a toy, it could be a pen, reach it, grab it, are they bringing it to their mouth, that sort of motion, and are they doing it accurately? Because you don't want to put a baby in the high chair and then have them like kind of like poking their eye out. So the last thing, which is a little bit less important, but it's something that we like to see, is just interest. Are they watching you eat, even if it's just for a little bit? Are they expressing any kind of interest that they might want to taste of what mommy is having?
To go along with weaning, there's so many different ways to do it. So we're going to specifically talk about baby-led weaning, which is what you focus on. So tell us, what is baby-led weaning?
Yeah, and it's funny too, because I feel like everything these days has a name and a method and this and that, which is, kind of a reflection of our society and where we've come from, sort of this real swing into science and whatnot. But it's really just real food for babies. So skipping the purees, skipping the pouches, and skipping spoon feeding, most importantly, and literally handing over real food to let the babies feed independently, to self-feed. Anyone who has a 6-month-old can tell you all a 6-month-old wants to do is put things in their mouth, like mostly dangerous things you don't want them to put in their mouth. But they're really developmentally primed for self-feeding. And, I think that it was probably how babies were fed. There's not a ton of available information on this history, but I've worked with a food historian, and we kind of think this is how babies were fed before the Vitamixes and the crazy expensive blenders. And were moms mashing food? Probably, sure, but I can't imagine a mom as a farmer in the 1800s with 5 kids was making a separate fancy meal of purees that were perfectly thin for the baby. It's just not something that was even really possible. So baby-led weaning is kind of skipping over the spoon feeding and skipping over what we think is an unnecessary step in feeding babies, and following the natural development curve of the baby.
So what are the main benefits of choosing to do baby-led weaning?
So, from my perspective as a mom of twins and a 4-year-old, you don't have to sit there spoon feeding. When I had my twins, 80 and Max, my mind kind of shifted and was like, wait, how am I going to do this? Like, I'm going to have to sit between their high chairs, and how is this actually going to work logistically? And then, of course, I was much deeper in a path of research on alternatives to spoon feeding, and I'll tell you that story about why. It's all about the independence. I find a lot of moms who follow a Montessori style rearing, prioritizing independence in how they want to raise their child. It really fits with them well. But benefits are, independence. The baby's going to feed themselves. You don't have to actually sit there doing it. From a development perspective, it's like, ask any occupational therapist, and almost all of them are going to say they love baby-led weaning. And in fact, they love it for special needs kids as well, because it forces the child to reach and grab, and all those movements, the pincer grasp, how they're picking things up, bringing it to their mouth, it's a lot of work. And so there's a lot going on to get that done. But the amazing thing is that that's what they want to do naturally anyway. So it's kind of playing off of that natural development. So, huge boost in fine motor skills, huge boost in oral development as well. Something we don't actually talk about a lot, or we don't hear about a lot. And it's kind of the secret that the baby food companies don't want you to know, is this. By 9 months old, every baby, every normally developing baby, should be self-feeding finger food, no matter how you started solids. So we talk about are you going to do baby-led weaning, or are you going to do spoon feeding? We're really talking about a window of 3 months that, according to the American Academy of Pediatrics, they like to see babies self-feeding by 9 months, and they like finger foods to even be introduced as early as 6 months. So, it is in a lot of ways asking a baby to kind of hold back their hands. You try to spoon feed a 6-month-old, many will actually reach for the spoon and try to bring it to their mouths, which we love to see. And we're like, yes, let them, right? That is an indication that they have the motions, they have the sort of cognitive development to self-feed. So, I remember when I was spoon feeding my first born Charlie, because I exclusively spoon fed him and spoon fed him way too long. I was actually kind of like, I hate to say it, but I was pushing his hand away because I didn't want him to make a mess and splatter the perfect organic kale puree that I had made him. And I was kind of holding him back, truthfully. He was ready to reach and grab and bring that to his mouth, but I was like, no, honey, let me put this in your mouth, the tiniest little tip of the spoon, and then clean him up right away because I was so worried about mess. But those days have changed. So, the primary benefits for me and from my perspective are around development, the baby's development, and just, fostering that independence at an early age.
Yeah. What are the best foods that a baby can start with to start with this journey?
So if we're starting with real food and we're going with the finger food approach, honestly, there is no perfect food, though we do have guides and blogs that suggest that, mostly from a nutrition perspective. But from a development perspective, honestly, things like a mango pit with a little bit of fruit still on it, it's a great teether. It's really hard. They can't bite through it. Really increases the jaw strength. A corn on the cob with some corn shaved off is also terrific, but so is a banana, or honestly, even a whole banana is fine. I love ribs for babies because it's just kind of like this, natural size for them to grasp onto. 6 months old hold things like this. They don't pick things up with their fingers yet. They just kind of grab with their whole fist, and often 2 fists, and bring it to their face like that. And so ribs, they can kind of suck on the meat and just munch on it. It's going to be the most beautiful 15 minutes you ever had to yourself. I always tell my husband, like, if we need a quiet dinner, it's like ribs and corn and a mango pit for dessert.
Awesome.
It's an amazing 20 minutes, just like complete silence, which is really rare in our house. From a nutrition perspective, you cannot beat sockeye salmon. It is truly one of the best fish in the sea in terms of nutrition, the omega fatty acids. Canned sardines are crazy good for babies. As is chicken liver. And I know that a lot of Americans are like, oh, I don't know if I can do that. It's so smelly, but it is like, you want a really good 12-month checkup and have that iron up where it needs to be. That's exactly the kind of stuff you want to be feeding them. So really nutrient dense foods, fish, chicken liver, eggs are great, and avocado. Everyone loves avocado for babies. It's soft, it's delicious, it's fatty, super good for them, and you can have the other half for yourself on toast.
I love it. That's awesome. That's super helpful too for, the moms watching are always kind of wondering how they can get started and what foods are best. All right, guys, that was part 1 of my interview with Jenny Best from Solid Starts. Next week, we're going to be talking a little bit more about safety when it comes to baby-led weaning. So how to prepare food based on their ages, and also dealing with allergens and making sure you're doing it safely. And finally, we're going to dive into Solid Starts as a company, and you can learn all about what they can do for you and their free database. So check it out there. And in the meantime, if you want to know more about baby-led weaning, go ahead and check out Solid Starts on Instagram. They've got awesome information, tons of videos, tips, and tricks. So check it out there, and I'll see you guys next week. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Mom Talks with Krista. If you're not yet subscribed, go ahead and click on the subscribe button. It should be down here somewhere. We release new episodes every single Wednesday. And if you're not following us yet, be sure to follow us at Mommy Knows Best on Instagram. And remember, if you're watching this and doubting yourself, you are a great mom. So thanks so much for watching, and we will see you next week.